Hey, it's Mark Leonard with your video thought for the day. All right, this is question week. And I got a phone call the other day from my buddy, Richard. And Richard asked me if I might deal with a certain issue, which just happens to be built around a question. So it's like, psh, love this. The question was one that was asked of Jesus. So here's the story. It's found in Matthew 22 if you want to read it. There are some Pharisees who want to try and trick Jesus. They want to try and catch him in his words. And the Greek almost reads trick. They want to try and entangle him in his words. And so the Pharisees, by the way, were a small division within Judaism that were really careful, assiduously careful about studying the law. And they had these very strict rules they lived by. Now, they lived at a time when there were a lot of Jewish people who believed it wrong to pay taxes because taxes paid to Rome were deemed to be something that they supported, in essence, a Roman Caesar who proclaimed himself God. And they just didn't think that they should be having to do that. Now, there were other groups of Jews who didn't care. Then there are other groups who actually were Roman supporters, especially the ones in control, the powerful ones. The Herodians, for example, were some of those groups who were people who were part and parcel of Herod, who'd been made king of that area by Rome. And so what the Pharisees did before they tried to entangle Jesus in his words is they went and got the Herodians, the powerful people tied into the government. So they've got Pharisees and they've got Herodians, and they go to Jesus and they start with this goofy little stuff like, oh, teacher. You know, they call him rabbi. Oh, rabbi. And that's a word of great respect. They said, we know that you're true and that your teachings are accurate, and we put so much weight in you. And by the way, do you think it's right to pay your taxes? And what they're talking about there is whether or not Jesus is going to say yes. If he says yes, he's going to lose a lot of his supporters because a lot of the Jews didn't think so. If he says no, then he's in trouble with the Herodians who are there because they're going to think he's a troublemaker. So they think they've got Jesus just absolutely stuck with this. And Jesus looks at him and says, hey, hand me a tax coin. So they give him a denarius, which is a coin, a day's labor. And it's got the picture of Caesar on it. It's been printed for Caesar. Jesus says, whose picture is this? And I said, well, Caesar's. Jesus flips the coin back to him and says, just give Caesar what's Caesar's and give God what's God's. And Jesus walks away and they're like, wow, because they didn't entangle him in his words. But it does bring up a perplexing question for us today. How do we live with one foot, in a sense, walking this world with all of its requirements and needs and daily regimen, and keep our other foot firmly in our faith? How do we mesh what we do in this world with how we live in our spirit? I was asked this by a group of men the other day. They asked me, how do you keep your life in law and keep your life in Christ? And I think the answer is a full one, and it's one that I'll delve into more tomorrow. But let me start by saying this. What we're called to do is to live and reflect God in all that we do. That means in our jobs, or in our retirement, or in our schooling, we are to live with the character of God. So that means being honest and truthful. That means being caring and kind. That means having priorities that are godly. And if we walk in all aspects of our life in that way, we are rendering to Caesar, in a sense, what is Caesar's. But we're also giving God what is God's. And what is God's is our life with our purpose and all that's wrapped up in it. More on that tomorrow, but this is a good question and a good place to stop in this, because this is your video thought for today.